Welcome back everyone to a new video of chapter 5. We're going to take a look at chapter 5.3 called Different Methods of Solving Quadratic Equations. If you take a look at what we will learn during this chapter as a whole, there isn't something that really belongs to this particular paragraph. Why not? Because you could say that this paragraph really is a summarizing paragraph of sorts. We don't take a look at something entirely new. We just want you to remember which three methods we have now have to solve quadratic equations. And I'm just going to quickly summarize the three methods, and then at the end I will give you, and I will elaborate on that, some cues on when you have to use which one. The first method that I would like to discuss is x squared equals c. And this one was introduced to you in second grade in chapter 5. It was the first one that we've taken a look at. Remember that in chapter 3 of this year, we also have taken a look at this form, right? This is a special form of the equation x squared equals c. If I just have a number like this, x squared equals 16, if in this case my c is bigger than 0, I got two solutions. Which two? The roots of this number or minus the root of that number. In this case, root 16 is 4, or x is minus root 16 is minus 4. If x squared was actually equal to a negative number, so that means in this case x squared equals here minus 32, then my c was negative. I could immediately say this has no solutions. Remember? We can also do that for this form if this was inside of brackets. Then we call it the form x plus p squared equals q. Then we can say this inside of brackets is equal to the roots, or this inside of brackets is equal to minus the root here. If this number here was positive, if q is positive, I had two solutions. If q was 0, I got one solution. If q was negative, I had no solutions. Okay? Especially if you have the form x squared equals c, I really would like you to use this method of solving and not the quadratic formula, because quadratic formula takes a lot of time, when this is a very quick way to now solve this sort of equations. This one might sometimes be a bit more difficult to see for some people. You don't have that many experience with it. Again, quadratic equation for quadratic formula works. If you see this form here of the form x plus p squared equals q, of course this is quicker. The second one, and I think this is the one that we've practiced with the most, is if we factorize things, and we could do that in different ways. Most of the time we use the product sum method for this, right? And if we had the product sum method, for example here, I'm now going to search for two numbers in such a way that if I add them up, I find the number 6, and if I multiply them, I find minus 7. Here, that means number 7 and minus 1. So we had x plus 7, x minus 1 equals 0, and then I can continue from that way. X plus 7 equals 0, or x minus 1 equals 0. Okay? Sometimes you have to simplify first. For example, if you have this form, 15x squared plus 30x equals 45, first get rid of the 45 on the right hand side, so do minus 45 minus 45, and then divide everything by 15, so I have something like this. The product sum method for factorizing is a lot easier if I don't have anything in front of my x squared, so get rid of that first. If I got something weird here in front of the x squared and I have weird numbers here as well, then most of the times quadratic equation is the quadratic formula, is the way to go. But if you see this again, this is a lot quicker to do than using the quadratic formula. And it all has to do with the rule a times b equals 0, right? We practiced this quite sometimes previous year and this year as well in chapter 1 and chapter 3. So I'm going to move on to the last and actually the new way, and that's the one that we introduced to you in chapter 5.2, the actual quadratic formula. Use this formula only when the other methods do not work. Fans of completing the square can avoid the quadratic formula, but in most cases the quadratic formula is the easiest method. Yeah, in chapter 3 we also taken a look at how we can solve using completing the square. If you still want to use that, that's fine. That's an okay way. I see most people now abandoning completing the square for solving quadratic equations and instead using the quadratic formula. Okay, so that's why that is not going to be rehearsed in this chapter. So if we have something like this, the product sum method doesn't work. You cannot factorize this. So instead call A1, call B5, call C minus 4, write it first in this form, of course, that's already here. Write down those values, calculate the discriminant. Remember, if my discriminant is positive, I get 2 values. If it is 0, I get only 1 solution for x. And if it's negative, you can immediately stop. You have no solutions. Which solutions are there? Let's say the discriminant is positive. I have x equals minus b minus the root of the discriminant divided by 2a. And x equals minus b plus the root of the discriminant divided by 2a. To elaborate on this part, use this formula only when other methods do not work. It's not like that is incorrect. If you use this method on the test instead of the factorizing way or the x squared equals c way, I will still reward you with full points. It's just that it's a lot easier to get into time trouble. So that's why they say, oh, first try the other methods, because the other methods are a lot, 1, quicker, and 2, less elaborate, so it's easier to find the correct answer. Here it's easy to make a mistake with all those numbers floating around. Okay. And here are some rules of thumb, and that's what I'm going to close up this PowerPoint presentation with as well. Most of the time, if there are any fractions, first eliminate them by multiplying by a certain number or dividing by that fraction. Simplify as far as possible, and then investigate. Can I rearrange this to this form? If so, use x squared equals c. Then investigate whether you can solve the equation by factorizing it, right? Can I use the product sum method, for example? If not, then use the quadratic formula, only when the other methods do not work, okay? And that's actually it. If I'm going to say there's nothing new for the glossary here as well. Practice this. This is just, on the test, we're not going to tell you which form you have to use, right? So if you on the test have to solve, for example, 6 quadratic equations, and for all of them you're going to use the quadratic formula, you can get some of them correct, but maybe you are not able to answer all the questions on the test. So that's why I want you to practice by recognizing which way of solving you have to use. Practice, practice, practice. Experience. Good luck.